You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 402.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? Hope you are all doing well. I am wrapping up my Thursday here in my cookbook bunker. And then between doing podcast interviews and I'm going live to do a free chat about cookbook writing foundations, I'm doing laundry and packing my suitcase because we're headed to Chicago tomorrow to enjoy the weekend there with our sons and their fiancés and celebrating the graduation of one of my sons from his master's degree program. We're going to take in a White Sox Cubs game and, from what I understand, share the city with all the people who are also there, going to the Bruno Mars concert and the National Restaurant Association show. So I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I've been talking to guests and I've been talking to students in my programs about May. And I have a private coaching client I was talking to yesterday about it, and May being called Maycember. I feel like I've said that to you guys before, but it's fascinating how this month gets so packed with different things to do. All fun things. You know, we got Mother's Day. Of course, in Kentucky, we have the Derby Day. We have college graduations, high school graduations, just many, many things that get people to enjoy the good things in their life and some celebrations. So I hope everybody's doing well. And if you're having a May that is packed with activities as well, be safe, have fun, and enjoy the connection with the people you care about. So today on the show, I have an interview with Chef Sheldon Simeon. Sheldon is the author of Ohana Style, Food from Hawaii for Your Family. He was raised in Maui. He is a chef and restaurateur, husband, father, and former Top Chef competitor. Along with his wife, Tiffany, he owns the restaurants called Tiffany's and Tin Roof Maui. Today in the conversation, Chef Sheldon and I talk about the deeper meaning of Ohana and how the spirit of hospitality, family, and community have shaped his life, his cooking, and the spirit that he hopes to invoke in this new book. You'll hear Sheldon describe the difference between indigenous Hawaiian cuisine and plantation-era immigrant influences, why he wanted to write the cookbook, how pantry ingredients and shortcuts can create meaningful and delicious meals, as well as creative techniques for building smoky flavor, making plant-based alternatives, and some recipe inspiration for tuna patties, animal crackers, pork belly, and mochi. Sheldon also reminds us that growing up in a house where people are constantly gathered around food, how those experiences shaped his understanding of generosity and connection, which he carried forth in his restaurants and his cookbooks. So without further delay, let's dive into this interview with Sheldon Simeon. Hi, Sheldon. Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast.
Oh, mahalo for having me.
Yeah,
Super stoked to be here.
Yeah, very excited to have you. Can't wait to talk all about your beautiful new book. But before we do, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm a chef, author, a father, a husband from the island of Maui, Hawaii. I was born and raised in the islands there, and my cooking is inspired by my upbringing in Hawaii. I cook the food of Hawaii.
Yeah, and you cook professionally at a restaurant?
I do. I own two restaurants along with my wife, Tiffany's in Wailuku and Tin Roof Maui.
Wow. What's it like to run a restaurant?
Well, nowadays it's extremely difficult. It's being especially out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But we're very grateful for every single guest that comes through our doors,
Yeah.
nonetheless.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of locals or people who are traveling to the islands come to visit you?
We're blessed with both. We like to think that of ourselves as a neighborhood restaurant that is open to visitors, and we're so stoked that I get to travel around this whole country. I talk about it, and there has been so many people that has visited our restaurants, and we're so lucky to have that.
Yeah, I understand you had some experience on Top Chef.
Yeah, good or bad experience. We're still trying to figure that out years later, but I have been on 2 seasons of Top Chef.
Yeah. I think it's interesting going on a show like that. I'm sure that it's exciting to be chosen to get selected, but I would imagine also it's kind of an interesting experience to go through the show and tape the show and have the results of whatever ends up happening.
Oh yeah, it's a whirlwind when you get on the show, and you never know what to expect day to day.
Yeah.
And I did it for 2 seasons, and I'm sure that's enough. But
Yeah.
never say never.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So tell us a little bit about your experience of the food and cuisine of Hawaii. I'm sure growing up, what you had available, what you ate, and
Mhm.
then what you brought from that to the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I'm the grandson of Filipino immigrants that came to Hawaii. I think to talk about the food of Hawaii and the islands, you need to talk about its history. I break down Hawaii food in two parts of where first will be the indigenous cuisine of the Hawaiian people, the
Yeah.
Kanakas, those ocean travelers that came and settled in Hawaii. And then the next part was from my grandparents and all the other immigrants that came to work on the sugarcane plantation. So I was grew up surrounded by food, by parents who hosted everyone in their family. My mom had 11 siblings, my dad had 9, and our house was the center of that all. So any type of holidays, family gatherings, birthday party, or just lunch or dinner or hanging out, it was at my house. So I was surrounded by food. My dad is still probably the best chef that I know, not by
Yeah.
trade, but just by the
Yeah.
food and his love for food. Um, yeah, my brother's also a chef, so we're just constantly was around food, and inevitably we became chefs.
Yeah. And the influence of your parents being from the Philippines. But let's talk about the difference between the indigenous food of Hawaii, the ocean travelers you spoke of, and then the other immigrants that came into the country or the state. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a stereotype that Hawaii food is, it's palm trees and tropical drinks when it's very, very uh, robust and, it comes from deep roots history. So the Hawaiians, like I said, the ocean travelers that came and settled in Hawaii, they were very simplified in their food, but they were very connected to the land. So they had growing cycles with the vegetables that they brought with them. They call these ocean canoe crops that they brought with them, some breadfruit and kalo, taro, some bananas. So that was planted. They cultivated the land, and then they would season those things very simply with Hawaiian salt or seaweed that they would get from the shorelines. Everything cooked over fire or preserved. Not until uh, the second wave of influence, where you see the influx of different ingredients, where you come to know what Hawaii food is. So Japanese influence, where they brought the soy sauce and and noodles, and Chinese workers. Portuguese brought bread. Puerto Ricans with spice, Filipinos with umami, Korean with their preserved things. So all of these things now in this modern day is influenced in the food that we eat.
Yeah. And when someone goes through your cookbook or starts to use your cookbook, are they going to see a mix of this, or do they actually see just the indigenous native Hawaiian flavors?
No, you'll definitely see a mix of all of that. And also, well, my first cookbook, Cook Real Hawaii, really spoke about those traditional dishes that you see in Hawaii. For my new cookbook, I just wanted to celebrate that feeling of family, that feeling of what we eat in Hawaii, not necessarily by the ingredients, but that aloha spirit, what comes with our food.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, you hear that mentioned about books that people are trying to evoke an emotion. They're trying, and you said the feeling of family or the aloha spirit. What is that, if you could put that into words?
Yeah, Ohana means family, and that's not only by blood, not only by your siblings or your immediate family. Ohana is your circle of people. That's the people in your community. Maybe it's the ranchers, it's the fishermen, it's the guy at the grocery store, your mechanic that fixes your car. That all encompasses Ohana, and it's those people that surround you and mean the most. Is what do you eat together? What type of food you cook when you gather together? That's the feeling of it, and it's a feeling of generosity, of wanting to take care of each other.
Yeah. And I would imagine with having a family of your own and then coming from parents that had 11 children on one side and 9 on the other, family, like you said, has always been a big part of what you do.
Yeah, we were so blessed to have those, you know, those gatherings. And as I reflect, as I was writing this cookbook, I watched my parents be these hosts to these people, and like I was very lucky to witness that, and that translates into how we run our restaurants as if we're inviting people into our homes.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. A lot of times we do watch our parents do stuff like that. I came from a big family, 8 children. Everybody went on to get married, so there's grandchildren. And when I saw my mom, just like feeding 10 people every day, like she got the food, she cooked the food, she served the food. Now, we always had to help her set the table or wash the dishes. But it seems so easy. And then I was tasked with doing the same thing, or other people are tasked with doing the same thing. What was it like for you when you watched your parents the very first time that you cooked for a big group?
Yeah. Man, I think I took it for granted that there was always constantly food that always evolved through our pantry. My dad was a welder by trade, so he'd have fishermen and hunters give him some meat from their hunts, or my mom would have gifts from my aunts, and there was always food evolving. But it was amazing how they were able to just have food always made, and no matter how many people showed up. But I talk about that in certain recipes on my cookbook, where they were so ingenious of how to make a quick meal, with whatever they had in front of them, just so that they could host whoever was at the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the quick meals that you could always count on from them?
Yeah. My favorite recipe from the book is Papa Ray's tuna patties, and that's my dad's tuna patties, where he took a can of cream of mushroom, 2 cans of tuna, an egg, and a bag of potato chips. And I'd watch this guy, trick everyone into making a gourmet meal. And it was always delicious. Everyone always enjoyed it. And it didn't really matter of what was on the plate. It was that feeling of creating something and cooking for someone that I think was magic.
You just kind of blew my mind with the potato chips. I can imagine those added salt, they added crunch. Because a lot of times people put plain breadcrumbs in it, but there's no flavor to a plain breadcrumb.
Yeah, ain't nothing like a bag of sour cream and onion potato chips.
Exactly. And I could see you probably could even use barbecue chips. You could use any flavor of chip in the tuna cake or the tuna patty to make it a filler. Yeah. Wow, fascinating. There's a recipe. My first 2 cookbooks were about food of Kentucky. And there's a recipe that I got from a restaurant for a beer cheese, macaroni and cheese, but they use the Grippo's potato chips, which are like a local chip, for the crunchy, topping that goes on top of the macaroni and cheese. And so many people that bought the book it was just like mind blowing for them to do something like that. I love it when we take foods that we just like normally would eat out of a bag and we add them to something cooked, and it's just like
Mhm.
just such an expand. And it's simpler than browning breadcrumbs or seasoning your own breadcrumbs. Just use the potato chips.
Yeah, this book was a study in that, I mean, now my probably 25th year of being, cooking professionally. I went through a period of my life where you're like trying to source the most rarest ingredients and those special ingredients to make a dish, and those are important. Your connection with the farmers and cooking what is seasonal and what is around you too. But I'm just trying to invoke that same feeling of when you eat a dish, or when
Yeah,
you take a bite of something. It's like, oh my god, it was a perfect strawberry at the perfect time of the season,
yeah,
or it was this tuna patty that was made for me because I just came home from work and I was exhausted, and that was in front of me. So
amazing.
I think I'm chasing that feeling more than I am chasing the ingredient these
Yeah,
days.
it's wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about the book. One of the features of the book is that a lot of the recipes are creative plant-based spins on traditional recipes. So let's talk a little bit about the plant-based spins that you make on the recipes.
Yeah, we want to include everyone, and I think taking a look at what is in front of you and what is healthy. We wanted to have those options. So you see a lot of plant-based things where we use, instead of cream, you can use, like, coconut milk in some of the patties. Um, what else of these recipes? I'm kind of going through the book right
Yeah,
now
one
too.
of them that I saw was you, instead of a raw fish, for example, you use pan-seared ripe avocado.
Yeah, exactly. I think, again, you're trying to invoke that same flavor, and I think using a ripe avocado in that sense is delicious. It mimics the fattiness of a piece of sashimi in
Uh-huh.
there, but then you have that bright, beautiful vinaigrette that goes alongside with it.
You
I
also have one where you use mushrooms to create escargot.
Yeah, that's one. The escargot has a lot of umami flavors, and when you cook down some mushrooms, it kind of gives that same texture as escargot. So we just flavored it in that same way. Everybody doesn't have the ability to get some escargot from France,
Yeah.
but I know they can get a tray of mushrooms from down at the grocery store.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of what you mentioned before. When sometimes these ingredients that you source for a restaurant might not be always available to people in their homes or where they live. But avocado and mushrooms are certainly something that people can buy. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Man, this book is for everyone. Well, we encourage it. We just wanted to people to get out and try things. And I think a lot of people are intimidated by a lot of cookbooks, and we really wanted to strip down these recipes and make it approachable so that people, cook with their family, cook with their friends, or for themselves. I grew up having those memories, and I took it for granted, cooking alongside my parents,
Yeah.
and I want to continue that with my children, and hopefully others get to have that same experience too.
I find that one of the most fascinating things about growing up, because the point at which we realize that we should have cooked more with our parents, we can't really go back and do it anymore.
No, no. Although nowadays I'm dragging my dad alongside with me
Well,
on,
that's true.
on
Oh,
all
right.
these book tours,
Yes,
and so
that's
he's
great.
doing he's doing the opposite. I had to be the guy, the go getter and grab things now, and he's tagging along, and I'm having him do all of
That's
those.
great that he's able to and willing to go along with you. I shouldn't
Yeah.
say he's willing, but I guess the fact that he's able, right?
No, we've been having a blast on the stops that he's
That's
able to
great.
go.
Right. Well, he sounds like he's been a big inspiration to you, so I can totally see why you would want to bring him along. So, one of the other things you talk about in the book is some shortcut cooking techniques. For example, I saw that you uh, seared tuna in a hot wok or pan to mimic smoking. Tell us a little bit about that technique and how we might be able to do that at home.
Yeah, and that technique is from the Chinese. The wok is means the breath of the wok, and they use that as an ingredient. That flavor of an ingredient hitting a super hot pan, smoking. This one using the soy sauce that caramelizes, and once it hits the pans, gives that smoky flavor as if it was being smoked in a smokehouse. So again, we're trying to evoke these memories with what we have available for us. We want to have smoky fish. Don't have a smoker. Let's use a hot pan that we have in front of us.
Yeah, you also mentioned using using a dry wok to make fish sticks.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's one of my favorite recipes, and like no one's got time to, or no one has the availability to get the perfect piece of fish. But I know that they've got fish sticks,
Yes.
and putting it in a non-stick pan with all these beautiful bright big flavors. I think it's gonna kick some fish sticks up a notch throughout this country.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Another guest I were on the podcast were talking about fish sticks the other day, and how, at least for us, even growing up, I mean, that's the kind of fish that we really knew was
Mhm.
fish sticks.
Yeah.
And that's what mom served us, was just fish sticks. So people do know those, and they do have those, and I'm sure that it's fascinating to think that you could use a dry wok style cooking to cook the fish sticks. What kind of things do you put in the sauce or on top of them when you cook them?
So we've got like dried chilies, also some bright herbs, some basil that goes alongside with it. We've got some Szechuan spice that spices it up too, but ton of big bold flavors that's gonna kick that up.
Amazing. And then the other thing that you do is you talk at the book, a lot of your recipes combine these sweet, savory, and tangy flavors together into just adding a multi-layered approach to flavor.
Mhm.
How can people achieve that in their own homes through some of the ingredients that you use?
I think as you become a better cook and a better chef, you start to learn these different parts of your tongue and flavors that make a dish delicious to yourself. So by cooking in this way, where you're layering, adding acid and salt, umami, spice to it, that all encompasses the works of making a successful dish. So my cooking always hits all those different parts, whether it's hot, temperature, hot and cold, or crunchy with something that is soft. I'm always trying to build flavors and textures in a dish, and I think that's what uh, makes the dish very delicious.
Yeah. Would you be willing to talk about a few of the specific recipes that I wrote down that really seemed
Yeah, let's get
delicious?
into it.
Okay, very good. What about the pork belly? Is it tocino with
Tocino.
yeah, with garlic rice?
Yeah, so the tocino is I love that Filipinos can have pork belly for breakfast. Oh, my favorite vegetable, pork belly. Uh, but this pork belly is marinated in this beautiful sweet sauce, and I believe our recipe uses ketchup in that. But then you serve it alongside this garlic rice that is perfumed to the point, where it's pretty neutral, but the only thing that you get is that sting of that garlic in a great way, because you get the sweet and tanginess of the pork belly. That's served alongside with some achara, is a beautiful breakfast that I don't know if it's gonna start you off on the right path, but it'll make you definitely happy
Well,
for the day.
I think it's neat to explore and not always having sweet things for breakfast,
Mhm.
savory foods. And, even when we travel or go to a hotel, it's more and more common to not only see, the waffle maker and the bagels there, but also savory dishes, but also on the side of that, all these condiments and toppings that they're adding based on the people who come to the hotel and go there. You might see garlic chili paste, soy sauce, hot sauce, different things like that. People are obviously using at breakfast because this would only maybe be a breakfast bar that's open for breakfast. So I think it sounds delicious and something that people can find. And I know that in grocery stores, pork belly is pretty easy to find and source. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that it's, for the most part, it's it's ingredients that that you can get. Maybe the anato, you won't get it, but you can also use paprika and turmeric in that. But you'll be cooking some Filipino food and some very, very like this is a food a dish that Filipinos eat daily. So
Yeah,
you'll be right in the mix if this is going to be your first Filipino dish that you ever cooked.
sounds great. So, what about the stir-fried olives? They have ginger in them. Tell me how that fits or works, and
Yeah.
then into the types of foods that you're talking about.
Well, that's funny how sometimes how recipes start off by mistakes, and this is one of those recipes uh, that happened by mistake. I ran a restaurant in Wailea years ago. It was actually two restaurants: Mala restaurant, which served Mediterranean island food on one side, and then migrant, which served in Hawaii food. So two menus, one line clashed, and we had a hot wok that needed to be hot because we was cooking some noodles all the time. But then there was some beautiful mixed olives that should have been warmed lightly in a saute pan. Busy night. That those olives hit this super hot wok. You get that wok, that smoky flavor, and I was like, man, I'd rather have it that way. So let's build on that. We added some aromatics, uh, some orange peels, and some ginger and some garlic, and then you have this beautiful dish that tastes almost Chinese in a way, but was born and raised in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, yeah, sounds delicious. And I think that looks like in the picture of the recipe that a cast iron skillet, if you don't have that or don't have a wok, would work as well.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you
Or
can
even
get
just
it
like
nice and hot and cook, and then stir fry the olives in the wok or in that dish.
yeah, it only takes a second once it hits that pan, and that just that little moment in the pan where it sizzles and it smokes gives that dish so much flavor.
Is there a recipe that's reflective of the indigenous ocean travelers in the book that you're bringing to the with the family style feel, something that we can make in our homes?
I mean, the closest thing would be the smoked ahi dip
Okay.
again, but that starts almost in the style of a poke. And poke was just cut up very simple with some sea salt and some seaweed. These ones, so it started off as an indigenous cuisine where you make poke very simple, but then we add some soy sauce and some oyster sauce and hit it in again that quick sear in that pan is our smoker in your house.
Yep. Yep. Very good. So I'm fascinated with the desserts and drinks as well. And one of the ones that jumped out to me was the animal crackers. You make your own animal crackers.
Yeah, not necessarily make your own animal crackers. You definitely
You
buy 'em.
actually season them then.
Yeah, we just season them up, and this is fun because you usually see like trail mix.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah. I
is the
just looked at the picture. Now I can see what I just visualized what's happening here. Go ahead. Looks
There you
great.
go. So like you usually do it like a trail mix kind of where it's that salty sweet glaze, but we add the introduction of furikake, which has all these beautiful flavors of umami of nori and seaweed and sesame in there. But those are addicting. That has been the most shared and reposted recipe from the book so far, and I've seen people put them in bags and give them as gifts, and
Isn't
everyone's
that
always
something?
stoked with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. And the seasoning, that blend of the sesame seeds, um, something people buy already. They might even have it in their cabinet right now. They can use that, buy some animal crackers, and it's just has agave syrup, soy sauce, a little bit of oil, some sugar and butter, and you mix it up and coat these and then bake them and let them cool, and you've got this nice like you said,
Yeah.
kind of like a snack mix or check mix
Yeah,
or
we had that on some macadamia nut ice cream the other night, and it was great.
sounds delicious. Sounds delicious. All right. The page before that says shortcut Spanish rolls using crescent roll dough.
Yeah, we didn't want to leave no stone unturned of what is available to you. You know, it was like my favorite TV show coming up on Cooking Network was semi homemade and using using things with what you have with store bought stuff. So,
Yep.
see some crescent dough and fill them up with some sugar and some butter, and you have this beautiful Spanish rolls.
Yeah, and would you be willing to talk people through a little bit about making the mochi? You have a recipe for Mandarin microwave mochi, and
Yeah.
because that's very popular, and people thinking maybe I can't make that at home, but now I think you're telling people that they can.
Which, if you get the cookbook, if you look at the photograph on there, that was actually my nephew's first time ever making
Oh
that.
yeah, that's amazing. How old?
At that time, he would have been 11, probably.
Yeah, so if an
Yeah,
11-year-old can make this, so can
literally the first time he ever made it, and then I said, yeah, let's shoot it for the cookbook. So it was pretty amazing. And it's all it is taking patience of kneading the dough in the microwave, where you take this sweet and glutinous flour mochiko, uh, mix it together, and you're slowly kneading it and letting it cook in the microwave. And then you just get some store-bought Mandarin canned Mandarin oranges, and then roll that over the
yeah,
top of it. Yeah, it's mixed and flavored with some Jello box packets. That's
yeah.
really really fun idea.
It is a fun idea, and it's a beautiful orange color, and I bet they taste good as well.
They're delicious for sure.
Yes, yeah. All right, cookbooks. Your cookbook, we're hoping will become part of what people are enjoying reading and cooking from and using in their own home. But growing up, did your parents have cookbooks, or was there a cookbook that influenced your work as a chef, or when you were, cooking in your own home?
Yeah, I just recently visited my father on the Big Island, and he has this whole shelf of spiral bound cookbooks, and these were many cookbooks from the local high schools around our neighborhood, or like bake clubs. So those are the books that I kind of like peek through. Especially the ones from the Hwanganjis, which are the Japanese churches and clubs in our. But those always had these amazing baked good recipes from old Japanese aunts and moms. So I can't wait till I and one day hopefully inherit those cookbooks. But yeah, those spiral bound cookbooks from my parents' house.
You want to talk about finding some surprising recipes.
Oh man, yeah, those guys were utilizing whatever that they had in their cabinets for sure.
Yeah, I think if you ever want to really capture the spirit of a town or a city or a community, if you're traveling and you go into a thrift shop or an antique store and you find a section of cookbooks and there's a community cookbook for that place, it's totally worth buying if you like to read through stuff like that.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very good. So hopefully you'll get to have those too. It's nice that your father still has them on his shelf. He sounds like he needs to tune into the Cookbook Love podcast and listen all about cookbooks, huh?
Yeah, sure he will.
Yeah. All right, Sheldon. So tell us how people can connect with you online so they can learn about all the places you're going to be and how they might be able to come out and see you in person.
Yeah, so I've got my own website, sheldonsimeon.com. You can go and check out all of my different stops throughout the country. I'm still visiting many more cities, so check that out. You can also go on my social media at Chef Wonder. I'm always posting. Those are like the minute-to-minute updates of where I am in any place or time.
Great.
But yeah, and come and check out my restaurants in Maui at Tiffany's and Tin Roof, and then we've got a bunch of projects coming up in the near future that we'll announce.
Great, very good. Well, will everybody follow along so you can see where Chef Sheldon is and what he is up to, and in the meantime, get a copy of Ohana Style, Food from Hawaii for your family.
Mahalo.
It's great to have you on the show. I wish you nothing but success. And I think that fish stick recipe is calling my name. I got to tell you something interesting. You mentioned you were in Chicago, and there's a restaurant. I know if you go to it's the Cantonese style pepper chicken, but there's a place in Chicago in Chinatown. I think it's called, I can't think of what, MCK, I think is what it's called, but they have the best, that dry pepper chicken. And
Okay.
once you described how the fish sticks were done, and then I see the picture, I can see that it's like the same. It's what it is. It's dry. There's no sauces. It's just the Szechuan peppercorns, the chilies, and the spicy flavor for the fish sticks.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see it. Tag me if you post it online.
I will. All right, Sheldon. Well, thanks again, and have a great rest of your day, and appreciate you coming on the show.
All right, Maggie. Mahalo. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. Again, all the links can be found in the show notes at www.cookbooklove.co. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, please check out the free cookbook writing masterclass called How to Get Paid to Write a Cookbook. It is designed specifically for food or nutrition experts, and you can check that out at www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. So that's it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.